Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Angel Reese got the better of Caitlin Clark as the Sky won a thriller. Also, the Pirates may have the eighth wonder of the world on the mound. Yes, it's that mustache. And we get an inside perspective on what it means to persevere. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It was the rematch we were all waiting to see in the WNBA. The Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky did not disappoint. An 87-88 thriller in Chicago. The Sky coming out on top. Aaliyah Boston missed the potential game winner with under a second to go. Tony East, our pal from Locked On Pacers, was in Chicago for the game at the arena. And Tony, this, as I said, was a game where we saw the star. Caitlin Clark had a double-double. Angel Reese had the best game of her career, at least as a scorer, 25 and 16. What was your big takeaway from this one?
Yeah, repping Locked On Women's Basketball today as well, because this game was what women's basketball is growing towards. People have loved this rivalry and what it's become this season. I shouldn't say rivalry. No one on either team wants it to be that, but you saw the buzz that this game generated, and Angel Reese was the takeaway. She was unbelievable in this game. I mean, you said it was her best career game, 25 and 16, and that doesn't even account for the quality of her buckets. Late, huge clutch shots and free throws, defended really well, got into it with Alyssa Smith and dominated that matchup, which was important because Smith's been good for the Fever of late. You know, Clark had a lot of great moments, but in the rookie battle, Reese was the better player tonight, got to the line, 11 free throws, nearly as much as the Fever team. Big hug from a W legend, Cheryl Swoops, after the game. Reese was the story and why the Sky were able to finally get over the bugaboo that is the Fever for them this season.
Yeah, and she has quietly, or perhaps not quietly, for those of us paying attention, certainly to the words that she's saying, had a really steady last couple of weeks, set a record for double-doubles, and had a monster double-double in this one. You mentioned the Alyssa Smith altercation, which if you've just seen the video, they get into it and the ref comes over and they're both like, hey, just let us do this. Let us talk our trash. And I think this is part of the evolution of the game, right? To bring this game to a broader audience that maybe didn't realize, hey, this game is really physical. Hey, these are trash talking, hyper competitive athletes, just like in the NBA. And the casual fans, a lot of them brought in by Caitlin Clark, may not have realized that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that they got the double text and they were both mad at that moment. Like Melissa right before that, not right before, but a couple minutes before that scored and hit the too small, and then Angel say, hey, take that personal, hit her back, right? That's what it was. And yeah, the league is physical. Like I know people know about the Caitlin fouls, but there's physical play every night, especially from the Sky team that with Cardozo and Reese just plays in the post so much. What they finished with 45, I believe, points in the paint. Those two are just phenomenal with 41 themselves. They both had double doubles. That's two rookies. I mean, they were terrific, and that's been a problem for the Fever of late. Post defense and fouling, they did a lot of that tonight. So despite good stuff from Caitlin and Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, they could not get enough stops, and it didn't help that they didn't score for the last 6.5 minutes. It felt like.
Yeah, and Aaliyah Boston, as I mentioned, had that two-man game with Caitlin Clark at the end, could not hit the potential game winner, and Caitlin Clark. 13 assists in this one, only 11 field goal attempts. Teams have keyed up to stop her. They certainly keyed up at the end of the game to take the ball out of her hands. How much of her passing was the way that she was being defended by the Sky?
Yeah, Wintrust Arena still blaring from the one that was that game. Yeah, it was a franchise record for Clark with the 13 assists, which only took her 3 quarters to get there, but she didn't have a single one in the fourth quarter, right? Yeah. The Fever's offense really stopped flowing side to side as much. They talked about that a lot after the game. They weren't getting into the same screen and roll stuff they were earlier. So some of it was the way the Sky are defending. You've been able to see over the last couple of weeks. Aaliyah Boston just won Player of the Week in the Eastern Conference because her connection with Clark has gotten much better. So that 2-player game has improved. Clark's connection with Kelsey Mitchell and 2-guard actions has improved. The Fever said about a month ago that they studied Golden State Warriors to get some of those two guard actions in with Mitchell and Clark, and that's been developing. Melissa Smith gelling with them, not tonight, but throughout this, this recent win streak they were on. So it all kind of came to a head with her passing in this game, and there are certainly some moments where fans are saying, "Hey, you're Caitlin Clark, like you should shoot." She was hitting threes early in this game. She made 5 of them. All of her makes actually were threes in this game. I didn't even realize that till right now. They did a good job cutting her off from the drives and let her get to the rim. But there are some times where, you got to wonder what the right balance is for her. Clearly, they've been winning with her passing, but she got to this point by setting the scoring record in the NCAA ranks. At times, I think people wish she would shoot more. They were winning by a lot because of the way she was playing. But then when the water got cut off, the Fever had nothing to go to.
This is one of those like soft skill kind of things, but you're an experienced guy. So I think we can do this. The vibes. I need the vibe check because this was a Sunday afternoon ESPN game. Yeah. The crowd, at least on TV, seemed awesome. What was the atmosphere in the arena like?
Yeah, they had a Vic Mensa concert before the game. Like I was just on the court. A lot of Chicago celebs here. Like it was quite the vibe. Like people knew that this was a thing. That was a generic question to Sky coach Teresa Witherspoon before the game was like, does this feel different? No, just that, because that was the expectation for what this would be like. And these arenas weren't selling out to this extent before this season. They certainly were today. The Fever don't have the same vibe as the Sky. Certainly their 4-game win streak got snapped and they sucked in the fourth quarter. But in terms of the viewer experience, the media experience, the fan experience, I mean, it was what the league, I think, hopes for. A close, tight game with 2 of their young premier stars, with lots of people in the building to see it, to break it down, drama, those players both shining on this stage. I mean, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling through the stuff that the league would be happy about from this game, but
it's everything.
It was really everything, of course. Yeah. So vibes very high, except for the Fever's result, but the Sky were thrilled too, of course. They've lost the Fever in close games twice this year to get over that and get it done.
Stay up to date all year on the WNBA by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Women's Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, just how ridiculous is new Pirates ace Paul Skeens? Before we answer that, the Houston Astros did a thing that no one else has done in a while. I love sports. I think, that's obvious, right? I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And believe me, I'm usually in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. There is no bigger home underdog on the diamond tonight than the Detroit Tigers. They have to face Aaron Nola and the Philadelphia Phillies. Pretty tall order. FanDuel has the Tigers money line plus 140. Detroit isn't much good at home. So I don't know. It's the Phillies. Take the Phillies. Something to pay attention to. Total runs. FanDuel has the over-under at 8. The Tigers have sneaky good pitching, so this could be a very low-scoring game. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. It had been 770 days since the Baltimore Orioles endured a sweep. May 15th, 2022. That was the last time the Orioles fans had to worry about going through an entire series without a win. The Houston Astros ended that streak on Sunday.
The Astros took care of business. Suarez was having a great season for the Orioles. He's not one of their better known pitchers, but he had a great ERA. I picked him up in fantasy baseball a couple of weeks ago, and he's been doing pretty well. The Astros were able to light him up pretty early in the ball game. They got 4 runs in the first inning, and I got another run in the 5th inning, then 2 more in the 6th inning, and then 1 more in the 8th inning. And that's a consistent offense, and that's something that the Astros have not been able to do a lot this season. Yeah. You would see some runs, maybe 1 inning, or maybe this is the Astros offense that we're used to seeing. Is it because Jose Abreu's gone? Who knows? Is it because they're Chas McCormick hit 2 home runs on Saturday? That's a big bat the Astros have been missing all year.
The Marlins won their 2nd series in a row. This one came against the Mariners.
They go 4-2 on this mini little homestand. They win both series back-to-back. And how about the Marlins kind of turning it around? Every time they hit the skids, every time it seems like the train's coming off the tracks, every time it seems as though the season is falling completely apart. This team finds that inner resolve. This team finds the guts. This team finds the heart, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, inside of them. The mojo, baby, behave. That's what they get, right? And they win today 6-4.
Max Scherzer returned to the bump for the Rangers as they beat the Royals 4-0.
I would very much like some apology letters from so many people who are saying, ugh, this guy's about to turn 40. He's washed. He's not going to do anything anymore. He's totally done. And the many fans around Major League Baseball have said, ugh, yeah, that's Max Scherzer guy. He's definitely going to be terrible. Like he wasn't great for the Rangers down the stretch last year. He was phenomenal. He was so much better than he was with the Mets because he was on a team that actually had talent and was winning and, was feeding that competitive fire that Max Scherzer has, probably the most competitive fire of anybody in Major League Baseball. But just getting him back in the mix and the rotation looking a little bit more like we imagined it, of having Max Scherzer, Nate Eovaldi, John Gray, Michael Lorenzen, and Andrew Heaney in your rotation. That's a solid rotation. That's a good rotation. That's maybe even a really good rotation.
And on the links, a wild scene on the 18th for the Travelers Championship. Protesters tried to interrupt another win by Scotty Scheffler. He won anyway. 6 climate change protesters invaded the green while Scheffler and the other leaders got their final putts ready. The protesters came from all directions around the green and waved smoke bombs that left white and red residue on the putting surface. Some of the protesters were wearing white t-shirts with the words "No Golf on a Dead Planet" in black lettering. The hole ended with Scheffler and Tom Kim in a tie after Tom Kim, after all the commotion, sank a putt to force a playoff. Didn't take long for Scheffler to win in sudden death as he finished the tournament on the first playoff hole. The Pittsburgh Pirates lost again, but Paul Skeens, the former #1 overall pick, was once again awesome, touching 102 on his final of 8 strikeouts on the day. He's 4-0 on the season with a 2.14 ERA, absolutely preposterous 61 strikeouts in 46 innings pitched this season. Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates joins me now. And Ethan, we know the history of #1 picks in sports. Not only do they not always work out like this, they rarely work out this well this early.
Yeah, and I agree. And a lot of people, Peter, will still go back to the fact of why was he not here right away? And you kind of wonder where the Pirates would be at this point if he didn't pitch those couple games in Indianapolis. Yeah. But I think it was kind of an onboarding process. And I think that even part of that, with him being there, also attributes to what he's doing right now, which is stuff that, me being 25, I interact with people much older than me all the time about this team. Even they tell me they've never seen this. Like, this is just historic stuff that Paul Skeens is doing on a consistent basis in every start that he has. And yeah, I referenced, the record, lost again. I'm sorry, Pirates fans. They're 5-5 in the last 10, 3 games under 500 right now. But here's the thing, Ethan, is they're still in the mix. Like, they are not out of the National League wildcard race by any means. And it does make you wonder, not just what could have been had he started the season with the big league club, but where this can go. How long can he sustain it? Because if you need a guy in a 1-game playoff, hey, he's 6'6", he's 235, he's got a magnificent mustache, and he can throw 105, it seems like. Yeah, and it's a very interesting concept, too, because right now with the Pirates, they have kind of this big 3 going in this rotation now, with Skeens kind of headlining it, Jared Jones, who's also in the mix for the NL Rookie of the Year conversation, and Mitch Keller, who you just extended this offseason to 8 years. That's going to be a tough trio to beat in a 3-game wild card series now. And then if you really get to a divisional series, which is very optimistic thinking because you have to get there first. And obviously over on my show, we talk about a lot of why they need to add to this team right now because of the dreaded Tommy John surgery. I knock on wood every time I bring up those 3 words. But he's doing generational things. And that's the word that got thrown around. And I even think, and I think you've even said this in the NFL scope, Peter, that word gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It really does. It seems like it gets thrown around almost every year in every sport and every draft. He's generational. You already mentioned some of the strikeout stuff, but what I think impresses me the most about him is that when you look at him today or in the game yesterday against Tampa Bay, Yandy Diaz took him deep on the first pitch and he adjusted immediately and didn't give up hardly anything after that. And they're 6-2 in games that he starts. It's a pretty good ratio if you ask me. I mean, you sustain that ratio over the course of the rest of the season, you're going to have no choice but being over 500.
It's not just the overpowering velocity that he can generate either. Like, he's got a great pickoff move. We saw that the other day against the Reds. Like, there is nuance, and you'd expect that. You know, he's someone who was in college, not some like 17-year-old who's getting called up to the bigs. This is someone with real big game experience. Yeah. But this was certainly someone who is closer to a finished product than we usually see from these highly touted players who come into the show.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you bring that up because I think a lot of people forget that he pitched collegiately at this time a year ago. Like we just saw Texas A&M and Tennessee, their game going to game 3 tomorrow. At the same time, Paul Skeens was pitching collegiately last year, and he's already doing this. And you mentioned some of the stats. I figured I'd bring some up. I mean, you look at the opponent average, ranking 5th among rookies, opponent OPS 3rd, K per 9 obviously 1st, walks per 9 3rd, whip percentage 2nd, already faced over 150 batters, so he meets the minimum on all that stuff. I don't see how he doesn't win Rookie of the Year, and really at this point, it might be tough to keep him out of the All-Star game. I mean, it really might. There's an argument to be made there already for Paul Skeens. And even in this city, people flock to his games. Like a normal Sunday last year, you'd get 18 to 20,000. There are about 25 to 30,000 people there today watching Paul Skeens pitch today. It's not,
and he might not even be the most famous person in the relationship that he is currently in. So that is the other part of the crazy thing. And he mentioned that the other day. He's dating Livy Dunn, who is an LSU gymnast who is very famous on Instagram. And he even said, she's helping me with all of this and stay sort of level headed. And that's like, we can't underestimate the value of something like that for 22, 23-year-old kids in these positions.
Yeah. And it's a very interesting concept too, because you look at some of the guys that he's faced already, like Shohei Ohtani. He went toe to toe with that guy. I mean, he struck him out on the first at bat that they faced. Second time around, Shohei takes him deep, and all he could do was help but smile. That's all he could do. And he's probably even a little starstruck by guys like that. And I like that you brought that up too. I mean, yeah, LSU, he was big down there. But when a whole city, and not even really just a whole city, a whole fan base of a specific sport is locked in every 5 days when you pitch, that's going to be a little tough to kind of adjust to. And I think that he's handled it with grace. He's a very mature kid, obviously was at the Air Force Academy for 2 years. I think that's kind of helped him kind of prepare for this moment as well. But every step of the way so far, he's just met every expectation and exceeded it at this point. And I don't think there's any stopping him right now either. I mean, he's a starting pitcher. He's going to have those bad outings eventually, but more often than not, it just looks like Paul Skeens is going to be dominant in this league for a very long time.
Stay up to date all year on the Pittsburgh Pirates by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Pirates on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, we get an inside take on what it is to persevere on the court. Injuries affect players in countless ways. Some of them aren't the easiest to recover from physically, but it takes that mental hurdle to overcome as well. As Texas Longhorn star Aaliyah Moore tells Locked On Women's Basketball's Howard Megdal, it takes a lot of work to get through some of these injuries.
It has been a crazy 3 years, going on 4 years at Texas. I wouldn't change anything about it because I think I've learned from every injury I've been through. But yeah, I got here my freshman year and sadly missed half the season, missed half of conference because I tore a ligament in my ankle. Was able to come back during March Madness time. And as everyone knows, if you've been watching me, for some reason, March Madness is just always my time where I excel. So I played really well my freshman year during March Madness. Was really excited to going into my sophomore year, coming off of that. Sadly, tore my ACL our 9th game into the season. And I've never had a major injury or a major surgery until that. And so it was I struggled a lot. I will be completely honest with it. I having basketball taken away from me when that's all I've known my whole life. And you're almost out for a year. And it was painful going through the surgery and then having to basically start all the way over. I had no muscle in my quad, so I had to build that back up, learning how to walk again, how to run again. It was definitely a challenge, but looking back now, I'm almost a year, not even a year, I think a year and some months since I tore it and had surgery. Like, I have grown on and off the court so much. Like, it almost was a blessing in disguise in a way. And I thank God every day that I was able to come back and still play the game that I love. Because, not everyone is able to come back and either be the same or be better. So I'm just grateful. And it sucked that I went through it. But at the same time, I think I learned and grew so much from the experience.
It's so interesting. Again, you go back, and I'm sure you think about it too. You had this game, the game against Utah, right, in the tournament that sophomore year, 21 points in 20 minutes. And I remember, dating back to high school, there was so much hype. There was so much, and understandably about the game that you brought to Texas. And then it just felt like that was a moment where it was a breaking through. Do you feel like you talked about you're grown. Are you a different player than you were in that way? It feels like in some stylistic ways you've changed the way you operate, or do you feel like you've been able to kind of get back to that player and then grow from there?
Yeah, I think I have finally gotten to where I was before, but I have grown from that. Like, I don't want to go back to where I was before and be complacent. And when I say go back to before, just being confident, like how confident I was before I tore my ACL, I wanted to get back there. And I knew once I got there, okay, then we can get to the skill part of my game and growing that part, because I do want to go pro. So my biggest mindset this year is to do everything I do. I'm working like a pro, because I will be there in 1 or 2 years. Like, it's coming really quickly. And so I definitely think that I'm back to where I was before in a headspace, but I've grown in the headspace, and I've also grown my basketball ability. So it just excites me because, again, like I said, it's really hard to come back as it is. So I'm really excited for the future.
Stay up to date all year on women's college basketball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Women's Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And finally, Travis Kelce has been in London supporting girlfriend Taylor Swift during her record-breaking Eras tour at Wembley Stadium. During the transition to I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, Travis appeared on stage for the first time to scoop her up, do a little dance, and of course, nearly incite a riot by the crowd. Are you sick of it yet? I'm not. It's still great. I'm enjoying it. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Lost, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the Oilers or Panthers hoist the Stanley Cup? It's Game 7, baby. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.